Hey, welcome back. Today we are going to do part 3 of my 3-part sourdough series. If you missed the first 2 videos, the first one was about taking care of your sourdough starter, and the second one was the full recipe, my favorite recipe that I use for sourdough bread. Today we are going to be baking the bread, so I'm going to show you how to shape it, how I let it rise, and how I bake it. So stay tuned. So this morning I took the bread dough, the sourdough, out of the refrigerator and I let it sit out for about an hour. So now I'm going to take this and fold it. And you just kind of shake it a little bit to stretch it out and fold it on itself. And then turn the bowl, and you do this about 4 times. And you can see this dough's no longer sticky. Sometimes I let the weight of it stretch itself out because it's pretty dense. But it's no longer sticky. It was really sticky last night, and it's no longer sticky. So you just do this, and the folding kind of replaces any kneading that you need to do. And then the next step, we let it sit. And then in about a half an hour, I'm going to pre-shape the dough. Folding the dough only took 30 seconds, maybe a minute. So like I said, each step is very quick. It's just that I need to be here in order to do that. So I'm gonna let this sit for half an hour while I go around and do a couple of other things. And then I'm gonna come back to it for another minute. I'm gonna show you who keeps photobombing.
That would be me.
That would be Elizabeth, but she's hard at work, so we'll forgive her.
For Sunday, I am making peanut butter, chocolate chip, M&M, gingerbread, snickerdoodle. So right now I'm working on baking the peanut butter and the chocolate chip cookies. I have already done the M&M cookies. I only need like a half a dozen of those.
The next step is to pre-shape my dough. This is pretty simple. I use either one of these, or I have a little Pampered Chef, just the little brown scrapers. You can get a metal scraper and use that, but this works fine. It's just something to scrape the dough off of the countertop. So on a clean countertop, I'm just gonna flip this out of the bowl. I'm gonna cut it in half with my scraper, and then I'm actually gonna weigh it to try and get it as close to half as possible, because this particular recipe makes 2 loaves. So I'll put my scale here. It's on grams. Should be, yeah, it's on grams. Okay, 1053, and this one is at 1014, so they're pretty close, so that's good. Okay, move that out of the way. And you're shaping it, you're kind of bringing this around. You're kind of trying to create this like skin on top. Move it and shape it, and you use the countertop to your advantage, so if it's a little bit sticky, that's good. There we go. You just want a nice, round, smooth looking loaf. There we go. So now we're gonna leave this one right here, and I'm gonna bring this one over. Well, I'll move this a little bit. And we're gonna do the same thing. So you're scooping and you're kind of pushing it in towards the center to kind of get that rounded shape. Okay. So now we're gonna leave these two loaves sitting next to each other, not too close, because they will probably spread out a little bit. I'm gonna get a clean towel, place them over top, and they're gonna sit for about a half an hour. Okay, now we're gonna do the final shaping. It's been about a half an hour. I let these rise in just small bowls, small plastic bowls. You can get something called a banneton, which is basically a basket that you can let your sourdough rise in. But I just use these plastic bowls, and I put parchment paper in them so that later I can just lift the risen sourdough from this bowl straight into what I'm baking it in, which I bake it in a stone. I'm hoping to get a Dutch oven soon, because then I can bake it at a hotter temperature if I want to, but for right now I have a stone from Pampered Chef that I use. I am going to shape this and then proof it in the basket, covered for 1 to 3 hours. So, now as you can see, these didn't really move too much. This process has been getting better and better, where they've kept their shape better and better for me, and I've been making this recipe for a couple of years now, and it's still improving. So when I first started making these, they would spread out more, but they still turned out well. So don't be discouraged if yours are a little bit flatter than this, because it just comes with practice and with doing it. So I'm gonna shape these again. Basically, this helps when you shape it, when you fold it and do all of the things with this dough, it just helps get the gluten and the structure of the dough so that it stays better, especially the shaping. We're basically stretching this dough over top of the rest of the bread dough, and it just helps keep it structure. So I'm going to take this and put it right into here. And the same with this one. Just get it into a nice tight ball with a firm skin over top. And just set it gently in there. I'm gonna cover these, so I'm just gonna put a lid over top of it. And that just helps keep the moisture in. And then I'm gonna let it sit for 1 to 3 hours. I usually let it sit for about the whole 3 hours. So at about 2.5 hours, I'm gonna start preheating the oven. Like I said, you can use a basket called a banneton to let your sourdough rise, but I just use these little plastic bowls that I already have. You can use a Dutch oven to bake with, and that's nice because you can get it hotter. The Dutch ovens can go up to 500 degrees in your oven. My Pampered Chef stones can only go up to about 425, so I usually bake with them around 400 just to be on the safe side, because I've broken one before on accident. I didn't actually break it in the oven. I broke it on the stove top because it's not supposed to go on the stove at all, and I accidentally turned the wrong burner on. That was terrible. But anyway, so all that to say, you can use what you have. you don't need any special equipment. So don't feel like you need to have all the special stuff. I don't buy the special stuff, especially when I'm first starting out, because I don't even know if I'm gonna keep up with something. And I try a lot of new things. A lot of new things I get rid of, I don't do anymore. Some of the new things I keep, and if I keep doing them, then I might get some of the special equipment for it. So I'm kind of hoping for a Dutch oven for Christmas, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, I'm gonna let these sit for about 3 hours. At 2.5 hours, I'm gonna go ahead and start preheating the oven, and I also preheat the stone, which is not recommended for a Pamper Chef stone to heat it without anything in it. So I heat it on, I think 350 with that. But you do want to put this bread into something that's already hot. So I've done it, hasn't broken anything yet, but every time I do it, I kind of keep my fingers crossed. So little disclaimer. So I've got my stone and the lid in the oven. I'm gonna close it up, and now I'm gonna preheat it to 350. Okay, my daughter was baking, so it's already a little bit warm in there. But once that preheats, I'm gonna be ready to put my dough in. It's looking really good. It's rising up. And once it's preheated, I go ahead and take it out, and then I will put it to 400 and put the bread back in there. The first loaf of bread takes just a tiny bit longer because of the way I do this. If I had a Dutch oven or like cast iron that I could cover, I could go ahead and just preheat it to the 400 degrees, leave that in there until everything was nice and hot, and then go ahead and do it that way. The second loaf, I will just take the first loaf right out and then put the second loaf in, and so everything will be a little bit hotter, so it doesn't take quite as long to bake. And so we're almost done. So that's preheated. The oven's still warming up. And I'm gonna take this and just set it right in here. I'm gonna scour the top a little bit. Okay, and put my lid back on. Okay, that's almost at the temperature now, so I'm just gonna put this right back in. And it stays covered for about a half an hour. Okay. Okay, so the sourdough's done, and it's still a little bit warm, which isn't super great for slicing it, except everybody's begging me for some, so I'm just gonna cut up a little bit. The rest of it, I'm gonna slice up tomorrow. Look at that. So when I slice it when it's warm, I just slice it from the ends. When I do it for sandwiches, it's a little bit different. Look how great that looks. So when I slice it up for sandwiches, I wait until it's completely cool because it won't tear at all. But everybody loves warm sourdough bread with butter on it. So that's why I'm slicing it up like this right now. Passing out the warm sourdough. Here you go. My favorite part's the end.